The morning air has been crisp and fresh, and hockey is back, and I couldn't be more excited for the Flames to be playing hockey this weekend.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I am your host, Jessica Belmosto, and thank you so much for joining me. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Today, we're going to be talking about Sam Honzek and some other prospects, as well as Honzek's potential and what the most recent development in his training journey says about this potential next step in his career. And we're going to wrap up the show with some news and my thoughts on the Flames potentially acquiring or signing one of the 2018 Team Canada players that have been cleared to play. Make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Flames wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We are here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. Your Calgary Flames every day. And let's jump into this because I was so excited to report yesterday that prospects camp has started. It feels like there's just like a little extra pep in everyone's step when it comes to just, it's not a million degrees out. Football's on, playoff baseball's right around the corner, and most importantly, hockey is back. I'm very excited. I think obviously if you're listening, you're excited, and this is what we've been waiting for. We have been waiting since April, since the Flames played their last game, or June if you stuck around and watched the Stanley Cup final, for this to be back. And today we're going to chat about our baby Flames taking the ice at WinSport. And anytime I talk about WinSport, I think about Daryl Sutter telling the team, we're going to go to WinSport tomorrow after one period of good hockey, and basically threatening them with psychological warfare. And Tyler Toffoli shared that story. I forget what podcast it was on. It was really funny. But today at camp, Sam Honzek was on a line with Aydar Suniev and Carter King as the center, which is pretty cool. That being your top line is pretty neat. Obviously, like I said before, this is your prospects camp. This gives you an idea of where players stand. One full day into this, I don't think it's really fair to write anyone off or say this person's a shoo-in or over this one, but it's nice to see these guys back on the ice after a very long summer. Morin and Brustewich were your top pairing defensemen. There really isn't much to report otherwise. There wasn't anything super exciting or notable other than Perek skated by himself prior to the other kids getting on the ice. But what was the biggest story out of camp today was that Sam Honzek put 15 pounds on this summer. And everyone was like, yeah, me too. He's not special. Which that takes a lot of hard work. I'm sure Honzek didn't do it by eating pizza and chips, but one of his biggest criticisms, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit, was how tiny, scrawny he is. But back to the prospects themselves, I think in terms of forwards going into this and looking for players that will most likely be invited to the main camp, I'm looking at Aydar Suniev and Sam Honzek. I think that those two guys are shoo-in invitations. Just because, number one, Honzek made the opening night roster last year. So that's a given. And I think that you kind of have to give him that again, especially with another pro season under his belt. And I think Suniev too, because he's one of your guys that's on the fringe. Obviously, he played college hockey And I just think it would be so cool to have two hockey UMass Amherst isn't Hockey East, but two Massachusetts college hockey program players in your lineup. I think that'd be pretty neat with Suniev and, of course, Coronado from Harvard. But Suniev obviously played in the final game of the season last year. He looks good. He's definitely one of the players, I think, along with Honzek, that are like on the fringe. And they will be the like next guy up sort of situation. They'll in terms of, if someone gets injured or they need an extra body because someone, like, they're heading on a road trip and someone's dealing with a lingering issue sort of situation. But I really hope to see all of these players, especially returning players, take a step forward this year and this summer, or this fall, I guess. Summer's over. But I think just because we are in a position now with the Flames where there are going to be more roster spots available, maybe not immediately, and maybe not for October 8th, but 6 months from now, towards the end of the season, you might be getting more time because they traded Blake Coleman, or Nazem Kadri got traded, or so-and-so is injured, and Ryan Lomberg ended up going back to Florida. Like, whatever the case may be, there just might be more positions open. And I think that, obviously, defense is going to be an interesting spot, too. Obviously, I think Bruce DeWitch gets invited, and probably more in, too. But with Rasmus Anderson being on his way out, and basically Parekh being in the wings, along with every other player that it feels like the Flames have signed to defense right now, it's going to be a battle, and nothing is guaranteed. Just because you're projected to, play this season doesn't mean you're actually going to play this season. You have to put in the work. And I think that's one of the things that Conroy and co have like really reiterated. Like, you have to earn your spot. This isn't given to you because you've been here for 3 years and blah, blah, blah. So I'm intrigued. I want to see players hungry. I want to see players work for it. The games this weekend are going on at WinSport. So if you have the time, you should definitely go. The ticket proceeds go to the Calgary Flames Foundation, which I think is great. And coming up next, we are going to talk about Sam Honzek beefing up along with his potential heading into the season and where I think he will likely fit in the Flames lineup. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using the FanDuel app because it makes Sundays more exciting, and I get to fight off the Sunday scaries with a same-game parlay. If my Cowboys are going to disappoint me, well, at least I can win a couple bucks, or at least hope to win a couple bucks. I think, if you're not overly invested in a game, bet the over. You can have so much more fun rooting for offense. And that is a betting advice that someone gave me years ago. And it's something that I'd like to pass on to all of my Locked On Flames listeners. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first ever $5 bet. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you are subscribed wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube, because we are back to shows Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, your Calgary Flames every day. And we are one episode away from episode 1100. I just want to say thank you all so much for making this show part of your day and listening to me talk about the Flames and just, hanging out. I appreciate it. We're approaching 6 years of hosting this show, and it is very hard to believe it has been that long. But let's talk about Sam Honzek, because I feel like this poor kid has been doubted from the second they announced his name at the draft. 16th overall pick. Didn't really show too much promise, or not, I shouldn't say that. It didn't seem as if we were getting a first round draft pick. And it kind of didn't seem like he battled with injuries. I talk about injury prone being a silly word, a silly label to slap on a player, but he has dealt with a number of injuries, and a lot of those injuries I think could have been avoided had he put on a little bit of muscle. And guess what he did this summer, folks? 15 pounds. 15 pounds. That is a lot. Actually, let me do the conversion real quick. So for the Canadian listeners, that is 6.8 kilograms. So he added some weight this summer. And if you follow him on Instagram, or if you follow Martin Pospisil on Instagram, you would know that they were pretty adamant about posting their training videos this summer, it's always fun when you get to see an inside look into what they do, because it's like, oh, I could never do that. Good for you. But I really don't enjoy people writing Honzek off. I think that, yes, he has had a little bit of a tough start, a tough go of things, but that doesn't mean all hope is lost. I mean, Brad Marchand, no offense, he started as a fourth liner and worked his way up to a 2-time Stanley Cup champion. So on like the top line, or I guess the second line. But it is silly to me to just write him off. I think that there has not been enough of a sample size to just say, nah, he's a bust. Mind you, he is 20 years old, played in the WHL, had 56 points in 43 games, and then went to Slovakia for World Junior Classic, and then played back in the W and had 10 goals and 31 points in 33 games, and then followed it up with 5 games with the Flames, 0 points, and then was sent down to the Wranglers and had 21 points, 8 goals and 21 points in 52 games. You know, I can see why those numbers would put anyone at they'd leave a bad taste in your mouth a little bit. But I think that not everyone's development is linear. Just because Coronado came out of college, did 1 year in the AHL, does not mean that Suniev is going to follow that same pattern. That does not mean that Cole Reshny is going to follow that same pattern, or Cullen Potter. Everyone is different. And I think that right now the focus needs to be on the fact that he's making progress in terms of his physical strength and training, because that was obviously a very big concern. I do have concerns about where he'll fit in the lineup, just because the Flames forward group is already pretty crowded, and I don't know what their plan is necessarily with Kirkland. I know that they signed him to a one-way deal, so obviously he would need waivers to go down. But I'm curious if they would play Honzek at the fourth line C over him. And I did see someone talk about how the Flames have kind of given up on him being a center, which is fine. I think that they have better center prospects now than they did when they drafted Honzek. So I'm fine if they just move him to wing. And I think it makes sense if that's where he's better suited. And that's why I think they need to figure out what they're doing with Connor Zary sooner rather than later. because there are other pieces that need to fall into place for other players. So my hope for Honzek this season is that he sees more bottom six time. I think that it's probably going to be the third line, fourth line, or sorry, I think it's going to be the fourth line, third line if, he proves himself, but I'm not going to sit here and say he needs to be in the AHL or he needs to be in the NHL. I think the AHL would definitely be of great benefit based on what we've seen so far, but I want him to prove himself one way or the other. I think that that's a fair assessment because there are just some players that you can't put in a box. And him, at this point in his development, he is one of those players. But coming up next, we're going to wrap up the show with an update on the 2018 World Junior Classic Team Canada players and their reinstatement to the NHL. Coming up next here on Locked On Flames. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you end up leaving money on the table. And that is where Monarch Money comes in. It's an all-in-one, easy-to-use personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-read, and easy-to-use interface on your laptop or phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've been putting off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting, and you can link all of your accounts in just minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. That's my favorite part. Don't let the financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off of your first year. That's 50% off of your first year with monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in to today's episode of Locked On Flames. Make sure that you are following me on Twitter at Jess Belmosto. So just a quick, content warning. We're going to be talking about the Team Canada case and the reinstatement of the 5 players that stood trial. So it was announced today that the 5 players, Michael McLeod, Alex Formaton, Dylan Dubé, Carter Hart, and Cal Foote have been reinstated after all investigations have come to a close. And obviously they were found not guilty in Ontario court earlier this summer. It goes without saying, you can go back to right before Dubé's leave of absence. I was ready for him to be off this team. I remember they had him playing top line minutes, and I was convinced that he had something on someone in the organization. And I think that the organization as a whole has moved forward past the need for Dylan Dubé or really any of these players. I think that the Flames are in a different position than they have been in years past in terms of roster upgrades or, open positions. Quite frankly, I don't see the appeal of signing up any of these players who have not played in the NHL in quite some time. Whether, they played overseas or not, that doesn't matter to me. You still have not played in the NHL in a significant amount of time. And the Flames don't need any more dead weight. They are doing the best that they can to shed that. And they've done a good job of it. they have done a really good job of it, whether it's players that don't want to be here or letting players walk that just struggle, whatever. The Flames, I could not imagine a world had any of this not happened where Dylan Dubé is still a Flame. I could not imagine that. They don't need a goaltender. I'm pretty sure Formenton is just going back to doing construction. Cal Foote and Mikey McLeod do nothing for me, and I already forgot the other one. So that's good. That's what you want. Sorry. It's Dylan Dubé, Cal Foote, Alex Formenton, Carter Hart, and Michael McLeod. The Flames don't need any of those players. And quite frankly, for a team that is so focused on culture and having a good room, I don't know if you should bring in players that were just on trial for anything. I don't care that they were found not guilty in this situation. I think any player that is involved in any sort of distraction is a player I don't necessarily want on the team. Like Rasmus Anderson. Like, we're talking about a potential trade being a distraction, let alone welcoming this firestorm. Do you guys remember the crap storm it was when the Flames, like, it came out that, so Dylan Dubé was the first player to leave, like, do the leave of absence. And they said it was like his own well-being, whatever. And everyone was like, oh my God, like, hope you're okay, blah, blah, blah. Oliver Shillington came back the day before after not playing for like 18 months because he was battling with severe mental health issues. And then, so Dubé exits. And then Carter Hart exits. And then it becomes abundantly clear as to what's going on. And I remember the backlash that the Flames faced. And it's a PR optics thing. I get it. You can't be like, oh yeah, this player that we have is, he's about to get arrested, about to be perp walked. But you can't do that. I get it. But public scrutiny is a difficult thing to navigate. However, after listening to group chats being read under oath and admitted as evidence, or what people testified to, I quite frankly don't even want Jake Bean on my team. It's a huge distraction. It is a locker room issue. Take it for what it is. These guys aren't that good of hockey players. I'm not saying that, they're like, I'm not saying they're guilty. However, after consuming the evidence myself, I don't want people like that on the Flames when they are working on building the vibes back up and continuing to be a good group. I feel like that would be a very dark cloud hanging above them, and again, a distraction. And I'm sure there's going to be comments saying, oh, well, they were found not guilty, they deserve to play in the NHL. Sure, they were found not guilty. The NHL cleared them. I still don't want any of them on my team. I quite frankly don't care. I think that there are more deserving players of a roster spot than these guys. And that's just my opinion. And the beautiful thing is I can have mine, you can have yours. And at the end of the day, I just want to watch the Flames play good hockey and keep the vibes not where they have been in years past. So thank you to everyone for hanging out with me on today's episode of Locked On Flames and listening to my little tangent about signing players that have not played in the NHL for quite some time, as well as being distractions. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Flames wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We are here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. You are Calgary Flames every day, and I will see you all tomorrow.